Hi everybody, I'm Holly Fawcett from Social Talent. You are most welcome to this month's monthly webinar from Social Talent on how to use the new LinkedIn search interface now that we no longer have an advanced search bar and we can't necessarily make our search strings more specific to find the kind of talent that we want without upgrading to the likes of a LinkedIn Recruiter account or LinkedIn Sales Navigator if we're in the third-party world. So lots and lots has changed. We're going to whip through this 30 minutes. I'm going to try my best to make it short and sharp and to the point. But look, a ton has changed when it comes to this new user interface. If you've received the new user interface already, I'm sure you're either flabbergasted or utterly dismayed as to how your LinkedIn now looks. I mean, the newsfeed looks much more pretty, I suppose. It looks a little more like Facebook almost. Your profile looks much cleaner. There's a lot more when it comes to the actual user interface and everything else, that just generally everything looks more colorful and slightly less corporate and blue. But we're missing quite a few things, and most critical to us is that we no longer have this advanced search box that we used to use all of the time. Our entire sourcing lives lived in this advanced search bar. I know many recruiters who used the LinkedIn.com version of search because it was just easier to use than their LinkedIn Recruiter account. They would just simply open their results in Recruiter later, but they would actually perform their search using LinkedIn.com. So now that we no longer have this advanced search bar, we need to do something quite drastic in order to get good results from our searches. Also, some of our search filters are no longer available or aren't quite as useful. In particular, what I mean about this is that we can no longer search by zip code or postal code. So in other words, if I wanted to run a search around a postal code of, oh gosh, the only postal code I know of off by heart is 90210. So let's say I'm searching in the United States for 90210 Beverly Hills, and I wanted to search for potential candidates in like a 25-mile radius of 90210. I was able to do that within the old LinkedIn advanced search bar. Simply type in 90210, radius of 25 miles, and bingo, I'd only get the number of candidates or potential profiles who fit that particular location. Whereas now, when I search for a location around my desired zip code, I now have to enter in a city, which in other words means the entirety of the greater Los Angeles area. So quite extraordinary expansion in the terms of the number of people I'm going to be including in my search inadvertently. And trust me, nobody's going to go for a job in Beverly Hills when they're actually living in Encinitas. Like, it's just, they're so far apart, it'd be probably a 3-hour drive, not going to work. So that really plays into LinkedIn's hand when it comes to its promotion of its LinkedIn Recruiter product, which for some people, especially if you've only received this new user interface now in the last week or so, of which many of us have, but you haven't factored in having to purchase a $6,000 LinkedIn Recruiter account into your corporate budget for the year. And that budget is pretty much already made up. So what are you going to do? Well, there are some new things that LinkedIn have included in their search capabilities. And these new little things are known as field commands. These were originally introduced in LinkedIn years and years and years ago, before they had a LinkedIn advanced search box or page or anything else. But making search that bit easier. But now they've reintroduced field commands to be able to search the database in a way that makes our results much cleaner. So let's take a look at the new user interface. This is what it looks like. We now just have this one search bar at the top. I don't have the ability to search for anything in particular. I can just search keywords. In one way, I completely understand and see where LinkedIn is coming from. They're trying to make it a little bit more like Google, where it's just plain and simple. We just have a search bar. Let's go away from this. So if I'm searching, for example, I'm searching for the keywords senior recruiter. LinkedIn is going to prompt me with the ability to search just for senior recruiter, or it's going to search for people with the job title senior recruiter, or jobs for people with senior recruiter, or just groups for senior recruiter. So it's going to prompt me for these 3 different things. I can choose to either just hit one of those 3 options, or I can just hit the search little magnifying glass and just search for those keywords. If I search for the keywords of senior recruiter, so just the keywords, what I land on is a top page. In other words, kind of these are like the main results. Some of this are jobs, some of which are groups. Here's some people, lots of different things. Then I can also click on people, in which case I'm just going to receive profile results, in other words, profiles of LinkedIn people who meet those keywords, who have the word senior and the word recruiter somewhere on their LinkedIn profile. They may not all be senior recruiters, although the first page of my results happens to be made up of senior recruiters, but not necessarily the case when it comes to getting onto page 2 or page 3 of my results. The relevancy algorithm is going to start dissipating from there. Okay, so I also have these search filters on the right-hand side. They used to be on the left-hand side of my LinkedIn search results. Now they're on the right, and I have far fewer of those search filters. And it's only once I've actually performed a search that I can actually start filtering my search by things like location, by what connection strength we have. So if I wanted to type in a location, and my location that I wanted wasn't in the first 5 results within that LinkedIn are showing me, I can simply click the plus add button, and from there I can start typing in the particular location that I want. And I'm Ireland, I'm from Ireland, so I'm just going to type in Ireland, select from LinkedIn's prompt and click Ireland, and then my results are going to be limited to the country of Ireland. So that's how that is working from there. Okay, let's do another quick search. I'm just looking for people with the job title or with the title of senior recruiter. So I'm going with LinkedIn's prompt here. I'm clicking that button. And what it's doing is yes, it is still showing me the same number of people with the job title senior recruiter. And again, I'm selecting Ireland, and I'm getting very, very similar results to what I had in my first search. So it's not actually doing quite a good parity search. It's not actually refining my search in any way. So the prompts that LinkedIn is giving you is not an actual job title search at all. It doesn't make it that little bit more specific. So when it comes to LinkedIn and using the Boolean modifiers and Boolean operators within LinkedIn, it still accepts the very, very normal Boolean operators that it always has. In other words, I can search and, or, and not. I can also use the space for and, in other words, just a blank space, which will mean and. And I can also use the minus symbol as well as replacement for not. So that leaves me with only having to write out or every time, or, and putting a minus before the keyword that I want to remove. So very, very simple. It also accepts quotation marks and brackets or parentheses. So all of this so far is exactly the same as it always has been. What's changed, if I say, for example, I can search for manager or head of in parentheses or brackets minus director. I can't use anything like the plus symbol, comma. I can't use the asterisk or any other wildcard symbol like ampersand or the percentage sign. I can't use a straight bar line, which used to be a replacement for is a replacement for or in other databases like LinkedIn. Or sorry, not LinkedIn, like Google, for example. But I can't use any of those at all. They've never worked, and they still don't work, so please don't include them. But only the main search accepts Boolean commands in LinkedIn.com. All other fields such as company, education, they no longer accept Boolean commands whatsoever. So when I actually run my search, if I'm typing in or putting in the company name, I have to actually type in the actual company and select from the company page. I can't put in a Boolean search string with company into the company field. It no longer works. Same with education. I can only accept individual schools. So no longer the keywords relating to anything to do with education. In other words, I want to find people who have a Bachelor of Arts degree. So I might type in keywords like BA or Bachelor of Arts. Also, I can't type in like results that somebody might have gotten. For example, their GPA average, or they got a 1-1 or first, or any of those type of things, or that they're a doctorate or they have a PhD. I can't type in those keywords either into the education field. It just accepts individual schools. So the title field, it's not available on LinkedIn.com technically, but what's happening when I'm typing in senior or lead in brackets, or recruiter not consultant, let's say. So I'm looking for recruiter not consultant. I'm using the not here. This runs absolutely fine generally, and I can also replace minus consultants instead of not. So senior or lead, recruiter minus consultant will work absolutely fine. Using Boolean LinkedIn, I have to be very, very careful when using the not operator or the minus operator. Using the not operator, I have to put the not at the end of my search. At the end of all of the search strings and all the keywords that I'm looking for, my not or my minus has to be at the very, very end of my search. If I don't put it at the end of my search, it's simply not run whatsoever. It's actually incorporated into my search as a keyword, or it's simply ignored, which is not exactly what we want. But actually the positioning of this search string is really important. It has to be at the end Otherwise, if we're not going to put it at the end, let's say we want to put it into the beginning or into the middle of my search, we have to group our not terms with parentheses or brackets, which used to only be the case when we were using or terms. And that's something that most sources are very used to. We only group our synonyms or terms using parentheses, never having to do that with not, but now we do. So let's take a little example at this. So going back into my LinkedIn search, we're searching for lead or senior recruiter minus agency, and we get a good number of results here. Now, let's say, for example, I'm putting our minus agency, I'm going to put that into the middle of my search. So lead or senior, and then minus agency or the word recruiter. And suddenly I have all 490 odd million members of LinkedIn. It has completely broken my search string, and I now have every single member of LinkedIn in my search result, and that has just broken our search. It does absolutely nothing. So the placement of our not has to be either at the end of our search, this is what happens when I put it into the beginning, either at the end of our search, or if we actually group our minus terms, so open parenthesis, minus agency, close parenthesis, and put that anywhere in our search. Once it's within brackets or parentheses, now we get our minus operators actually running properly. So the placement of the not, as most Boolean operators, should be absolutely fine, but it has to be now within our parentheses. So that's one strange rule when it comes to the Boolean search commands for LinkedIn. It's the only changes really that really have been made. Okay, so in summary, for and or not, quotations and our brackets, all supported. When using or using the not or the minus sign, you have to use parentheses as well. That's pretty much bish bash bosh for LinkedIn, just the normal Boolean commands. Now, I hinted at the very beginning of this webinar that LinkedIn has reintroduced what is known as field commands. So any of us either watching the webinar or watching back on YouTube or anything else, if we are familiar with sourcing for candidates or sourcing for information on Google, on Bing, any other kind of big search engine like that, we're probably already used to using field commands. For example, I'm looking at a field command for, I want to just look at pages relating to LinkedIn.com. So I might use site:/LinkedIn.com as a field command to just search the LinkedIn website. And I can do that within Google or I can do that within Bing. But now LinkedIn have also introduced these field commands, and these field commands enable us to search for very specific keywords within very particular parts of people's profiles, including current job titles. So this is really, really exciting for us. We're so delighted that we're able to search for job title keywords again, because what this does is it increases the relevancy and the accuracy of our search. And we always recommend that you use them because it is so important to get to perfect people first. Otherwise, our time on LinkedIn will just be spent going over and over and over again, seeing the same people all the time, not seeing fresh results, not seeing accurate results, and just utterly wasting our time. And trust me, we have too much to be doing in our day without wasting too much time. So in terms of these field commands, what LinkedIn accept are now these field commands here. It is title : company : school : first name, all one word, : and last name, all one word, : So that's what they look like. They are all incredibly important that they have a colon at the end, not a semicolon, in other words, where you have the period at the top and a comma at the bottom. So it's not that one. It's just the two dots, one beneath the other. So that colon is incredibly important. If it's forgotten, LinkedIn will just assume that you mean to find the word title or the word company, and that's not what we want. So it has to be written in a very particular way. Title : Also, you'll notice that they're all in lowercase, whereas our Boolean operators are all in uppercase, and or not. They're always written in all caps, whereas these are all written in lowercase. And that is absolutely on purpose as well. They must be in lowercase. So just to make things a little bit difficult for us. Also, you'll notice as well that there's no space between the field command in which we're actually searching and the keywords as well that we're going to search for. So let's say, for example, I'm going to run a search like this, where we have the title field, for example. So I'm looking for, let's say I'm going to look for my boss, Johnny Campbell, our CEO. So title : CEO. There's no space between the title and the title : and the term CEO. But now I've got a special one here. I've got company : social talent. Now, social talent is a phrase. It has a space in it, so social space talent. So that needs to be in quotation marks. So, and what happens here is that there's no space between the colon for company colon and then the open quotation. So company colon, open quotation, social space talent, close quotation. So that's what happens when we have spaces in our phrases. First name Johnny, second name Campbell. And when I place that into LinkedIn, just copy and paste the whole thing into the LinkedIn search bar, and lo and behold, we get our search result. So absolutely ideal. All of our search commands are working absolutely fine. And I search for the job title, which by the way, it only searches for the current job title. The same with company, only searches for the current company. I can search for past companies in this particular search field. Right, so let's go back into our LinkedIn search. Let's type in title recruiter company Google. What happens here is that we start getting recruiters from the company of Google. Again, absolutely perfect, works great. And it's getting current jobs with those. When it comes to the search field command for school, what I'm seeing is that it's not working consistently. It used to, in the past, when we searched the school field within the old LinkedIn Advanced Search, it used to search for any keyword that was contained within somebody's school information. So if I, for example, not only did I enter the university that I attended, but I also entered the grade that I received, the degree type that I received, some of the topics and subjects that I would have majored in, I would have been able to search for any of those keywords using the LinkedIn school field. But now if I search for those fields, or search for those keywords within the school field, it doesn't quite work consistently. It tends to work very, very well when you actually name the individual schools themselves, but not necessarily consistently anyway when we start to enter individual keywords that relate to their education. Like for example, I want to find somebody who has a PhD, so I would type in PhD into the school field, but I don't necessarily, I get some people with PhD, but not others. So it's not working all the time. Just be careful of that one. Okay. When it comes to our searching though, recruiters, we tend to write big, long Boolean search strings. We write these big, long Boolean search strings that not only work for LinkedIn, but also work for job board databases, other databases that we use, Google, etc., our own database. So we don't just write many strings over and over and over again. We're writing one string that can be adapted very quickly for lots of different places. So how do we adapt our search string, our big long Boolean search string, for specifically LinkedIn? We're going to adapt our search string for specific requirements. So let's say, for example, the specific requirements I need are the job title, company keywords, the skills, making sure they're all in the right places. Remember what those field commands are. The field commands are title, company, school, and then first name and last name. We'll probably never have to use those very often, first name and last name. Right. So here's our big long Boolean search string. I have written this within a Notepad document. So if you're a Microsoft user or a Windows user, go into the bottom left corner of your computer screen and click into the search bar and just type in Notepad. And that will bring up this Notepad program, which is a blank text editor. Any of the text that we write in here won't have any formatting in it, which is ideal for what it is that we need. If you're a Mac user, the program you're looking for is known as Text Edit, not Notes. There is a program called Notes, but that is a formatted text editor. What you're looking for is just a program called Text Edit. It'll be in your applications folder as well. So I have a nice long Boolean search string here. Here I'm looking for a talent acquisition manager with skills in candidate sourcing and employer branding. So our talent acquisition and manager, what I always do is I always split up the two terms of my job title. You'll notice that virtually every job title in the world has two parts, usually two words, sometimes a little bit more. But the two parts are the functional element of the role, and then the second one is the seniority level. In our instance, the functional part of the role is that they're in talent acquisition or recruiting, and the hierarchical or seniority part of the role is that they're a manager, or MGR, or senior, or management, etc. So there's lots of different keywords for the functional element, and there's lots of different synonyms of keywords for our seniority element. But if I were to write talent acquisition manager, or talent acquisition MGR, or talent acquisition MNGR, I'm just repeating those keywords over and over again. Rather than having to do that, what I'm doing is I'm going to separate those two terms and look for the synonyms of each of my requirements separately. What this does then as well is it actually allows for those weird and wonderful job titles to occur. In other words, people who have talent acquisition something manager. In other words, talent acquisition and recruiting manager, or talent acquisition and staffing manager. You know, people just have weird job titles, so let's let them do that. I'm searching for those keywords somewhere in their job title. Does not necessarily in that order as well. It can be manager of talent acquisition for all we care. So I've split those two job title keywords apart, and I'm looking for synonyms of talent acquisition like TA or talent attraction or recruiting. Synonyms of manager like MGR or MNGR, management, lead, leader, etc. Candidate sourcing synonyms, and then employer branding synonyms, all written like this. You notice as well that I've left a line gap in between each of my requirements, and that space, remember the space means and. So it's talent acquisition or any of its keywords, and manager or any of its keywords, and candidate sourcing or any of its keywords or synonyms, and employer branding or any of those synonyms. It's a nice big Boolean string that I can put into my database and now into LinkedIn. So how do we adapt it for LinkedIn.com now that we don't have an advanced search field, that I can't just copy and paste my keywords that related to the current job title into a job title field? So remember, we have those field commands. If I were to copy and paste the whole thing just into the big search bar, I get an extreme number of results, none of which necessarily are exactly what it is that I'm looking for. The first page of results seems relatively good. The algorithm is working quite well, and that some results are coming up to be quite useful, but not necessarily that in that case. So I'm getting quite a large number of results, about 5,000 results. So what about using that field command? Remember, we have that field command. Logically, if we're used to using them within Google and everywhere else, logically we think we might work like this, where we actually take our job title keywords, and I'm going to put in title colon, and then open bracket, and all of my synonyms relating to talent acquisition, and then title colon, open bracket, and all the keywords relating to manager. So that's logically how I think it would work, because I do so for Bing, I do so for Google. That's how field commands should work, shouldn't it? Okay, let's copy and paste this into LinkedIn and see what happens. What happens is we end up getting exactly the same result as if we hadn't used a field command at all, which is hugely disheartening. And that kind of got us thinking, does this mean that we can't use field commands alongside Boolean operators? Do we just have the ability to use field commands once and that's it? We don't have the opportunity to use them twice? Maybe that's it? Okay, so we also thought about maybe grouping the title keywords together using multiple parentheses. In other words, I'm only going to use one version of the title keyword. I can't use it twice. Maybe that was what was going on. So, okay, we took away the second title field command. We opened a new parenthesis at the beginning of the first one and closed it at the end. So grouping the whole thing together, talent acquisition and manager. Let's put this into LinkedIn and see what happens. And lo and behold, we get the same result again. Okay, right. It's still not working. What else should we do? Right, we kind of had a big hack day here at Social Talent. We literally pulled our hair out, threw things at each other, really and truly tried to break LinkedIn, and LinkedIn, trust me, didn't like it. But we had all three versions of LinkedIn open. We had LinkedIn.com, the new version. We had LinkedIn.com, the old version, and we also had LinkedIn Sales Navigator, LinkedIn Recruiter open as well. So all three of them open at the same time, and wondering what was going on when we tried to put in certain field commands. What result should we be getting? And here's what we found. We found that yes, Boolean operators and field commands, they do go together. We can use them. However, they don't quite work in the way that we thought. It's not about putting one field command in at the beginning of each of our keywords. It's actually that we have to put in the field command every single time we put in a keyword. So if ever I have lots of keywords that relate to the job title, I have to use the title field command every single time. Still don't get me? Okay, here's what that looks like. Here's that same Boolean search string on my notepad, but here's what I need to do now. I need to put in title colon talent acquisition, or title colon TA, or title colon talent attraction, or title colon recruiting, or title colon recruitment, etc. So every time I have a title word, a word that relates to the job title that I want to search for within a Boolean search command, I need to write it like this: title colon and the keyword every single time. So never before has our Notepad document become more critical to our search. If you're not using Notepad already, whereby this is where you write your search strings, and you're relying on simply just typing in our search directly into LinkedIn itself, Well, that is no longer going to be the case. You stop that today, because first of all, we need to make sure, kind of step back a little, that we are, we're not missing any field commands before any search terms, because it's very easy to miss them. And also it enables us to copy and paste in things nice and easily and kind of experiment with our search. So my recommendation, always use Notepad to write your Boolean search strings before you put them into LinkedIn to make sure that you've adapted them correctly. Okay, so now that I put that into LinkedIn, now what do I receive? Now I start to get about 1,700 results, which is perfect. Whereas previously I was getting far too many and none of it related to actually that job title. Now this is a result that is now consistent between LinkedIn Recruiter, LinkedIn.com, the old version, and now the new LinkedIn.com as well. So it's now consistent across the all three. This is now what I have to use. Once we've performed our search, then we can start using the filters like location. So I can start putting in locations of the particular countries or cities that I want as well. So what about those advanced searches using not or minus? Remember when we were just using normal searches earlier on without using field commands, we had to put the not terms or our minus terms at the very end of our search. And if we were to place them anywhere else, they had to be within parentheses or brackets. Well, that still is the case when it comes to using field commands and using those more advanced or complex search terms. So let's look at some use cases. So let's say, for example, I'm looking for title recruiter or title sourcer. This should get a certain number of search results, as we can see here. But now it's going to add to my search and say, right, title recruiter or title sourcer, but minus title manager or minus title head. In other words, I don't want those who are in that very senior kind of echelon when it comes to recruiting and sourcing. So minus title manager or minus title head. When I run that search, well, now it technically works because the minus terms, all of the things that I wanted to remove, was at the end of my search string. So this technically works. However, if I were to move that to the beginning of my search, so minus title manager or minus title head, and then our title recruiter or title sourcer, those are the keywords that I want to include in, when I include that, well, again, it breaks my search and I get all 492 million members of LinkedIn. So that didn't work at all. When it happens, I need to put in our parentheses. In other words, I need to put a parenthesis before the minus. That's where the tricky bit is, even though we're using parentheses within our search anyway. So parenthesis minus, and then parentheses again, title colon manager or title colon head, and then finishing up with two parentheses. Because that's a mathematical thing, it needs to be equated at the end of each one. So when I run that, then I get my search and I'm actually getting good search results and good quality results out of that. Let's try another case here. So I have my search for our title keywords, and then I'm minusing certain companies. So for example, I'm minus company, and again, I'm putting the parentheses before the minus, and once I run that in my search, that is then getting some good results where I'm removing those companies from my search results. So the minus has to be enclosed with parentheses. Remember, you have to put a bracket to the left of the not as well as at the very end of my entire search string. So double check your search before running it. There has to be an open parenthesis before the not, so before the minus, as well as after the whole search string. There has to be an even number of parentheses or brackets before and after my search string. So a little bit of a tricky bit of a rule when it comes to this, but all is fine. Just, I suppose, tend to just kind of play safe, again, using your notepad to make sure that you've put all of your search strings in the correct place and using the parentheses in the right way then as well. As I say, when it comes to our search filters, once we've performed our search, we can then start to use our search filters on the left-hand side, whereby we're selecting things like the location, we're selecting the companies, etc. The most useful search filters that I suppose we're going to be using on a day-to-day basis are location, current companies, and the connection strength as well. That, how are we connected to the individuals that show up in my search? When it comes to location, remember, we don't have a zip code field or a postcode field, so I have to type in the city or the country. And what's nice though is I can type in multiple cities and locations to kind of get a good big grouping, but unfortunately I can't necessarily type in specific zip codes or postal codes. Companies as well as probably what we're going to use, the current company, and again I can select individual companies from that, and the connections field, so I can say, let's say I'm filtering my search to only see the results that are those who I'm directly connected with because I have some affinity with them, or maybe those who we have a connection in common. Very, very simple to do any of those. It's simply a tick box exercise, or if I don't see the individual location that I want to search at that particular time, I just click plus add, start typing in the name of the city, like Amsterdam, for example, select from the drop-down list of Amsterdam area Netherlands, so tick that, and then my search result is filtered to those particular areas. The same with connections, it's just a tick box exercise, and current companies, I have the first 5 in my results, so those are the largest number of results are from those individual companies. If I don't see the individual company that I want in the list, I click plus add and just add it there very, very simply from that. But look, as recruiters, we're looking for perfect people first. That's typically what it is that we're looking for. Perfect people first. Why bother if we see a search result of 40,000 people? How on earth are we going to get through 40,000 people? Search for perfect people first. What that means is identify those individual skills that we're really looking for this specific role. Look at job titles that really mean they're going to be able to take on the role as well, whether they're going to be moving up or is doing a slight lateral move then as well. Looking for perfect people first, or looking for those who are closest and matched to our requirements, but also who is it that we reach out to first. For example, those who we're connected with, those who are at the ideal companies which we'd like to hire for. But really zoom right in to get to the perfect candidates before your competition. Yeah, there might be 40,000 people out there with that skill, but I want to get to the perfect subset of 20 individuals who are perfect for this role, who I can reach out to straight away, start a conversation and get them involved in the process. So really identify some form of criteria. What companies should my ideal candidate work in? What locations should they be based in? But also add those filtering options like what industry would they be in, or what university or college would they have been attended. If I want to look for particular companies, maybe I can identify those who work at a management consulting firm. I might write a Boolean search string for that though, so I can have a list of management consulting firms like Bearing Point or Booz Allen or Boston Consulting Group or any of those. But again, remember, if I'm going to be putting this into my search box at the very top, because the actual the search fields on the right hand side, once I've performed my search, they don't accept Boolean, but I can use field commands here, remember. So my field commands instead will look like this: company Bearing Point, or company Booz Allen, or company Boston Consulting Group, or company BCG, or company Capgemini, etc. So my field commands work exactly the same way with company as it would have done with the title field as well. And once I perform that search, I get really good results. Maybe another piece of criteria is that we're looking for individuals who've maybe attended a university or college in Madrid, because I'm looking for individuals who have an affinity with the area. Maybe I know that there isn't exactly the type of people in Madrid itself, but perhaps we'll be servicing the Madrid market. I don't know, random thing. But I often find this result that people are looking for an affinity with a location, particularly if it's a fairly remote location or wouldn't necessarily be the most urban of places, where it's difficult to find talent who actually want to go back there. Maybe they're in London, but they want to live up in the Cumbria Hills. You never know. Okay, so again, I've identified all of the universities within Madrid. I've listed them all individually like this in a Boolean search string. But again, if I wanted to use that in a search string, it would find people, but those keywords would be anywhere on their profile. I want to find that within the school field. Remember, the school field's a bit tricky. It's working quite well when it's listing individual schools, but not much else from that. So if I were to use the field commands, I would be using the field command of school : and then the universidad name. So school : goes before each particular phrase, remember, and there's no space between the colon and the open quotations for our phrase. So just repeating that school over and over again within our Boolean search string. Once I run that within LinkedIn, again, I'm getting really good results. Alternatively, when it comes to searching for those perfect people first, thinking again, who's in my immediate network who's suitable, or who's in my second degree network who I have a connection to that might be suitable for my role as well. And just literally do a tick box exercise where we click the first connections or the secondary connections to know who it is that I want to reach out to. So that is our whirlwind trip. I've been told we're reliably just short of our half an hour. I told you to be quick and short and sharp. Thank you so much for attending. I hope you have learned a ton when it comes to the new version of LinkedIn.com. Please follow us along on Twitter at the hashtag Social Talent. Ask any questions. But we are coming back next month on April 5th on basically how to use recruiting and headhunting techniques to find leads for your sales teams. So recruiters, if you have inside sales individuals, people in B2B, be sales generation and lead demand generation, and you want to think, do you know what, they can use the headhunting techniques that I use to find talent like them. They can use them to find prospects within their business. Absolutely they can. So we're going to be teaching your salespeople recruiting techniques when it comes to finding the right people to prospect. So our webinar is going to be a half hour long on Wednesday, April 5th. Make sure your sales team join along. We'd be absolutely delighted to have them along. They can register at socialtalent.co/webinars. I'll see you at our next webinar. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.